And can everybody hear me in the back? I know my voice doesn't carry very well. Thank you so much for making the time to be here. I know that this is always a really, really busy time. In particular, this year, everybody just seems to be so incredibly busy that it amazes me when we're able to, at such short notice, get a group like this together. All of you have something really valuable to share in terms of the issue that we're going to discuss today, which is shark conservation and wise management of sharks in Palau. So I'm really grateful to all of you for making the time to be here. We have Mandy, who, as everyone knows, is a fantastic photographer. And we're going to start off by asking Mandy, and she's very graciously accepted the request to show some of the photos that she's taken of sharks in Palau's waters. And then what I'd like to do is just open it up for anyone else who's doing shark conservation in Palau, like Nature Shark Foundation, SANS, anyone else, if you want to say a little bit about the work that you're doing, please feel free. Core State, you guys are doing great work in terms of the research right now. If anybody wants to share what they're doing, we'll have a little bit of time for that. But just keeping in mind that we've got an hour and a half to 4:30, which is the end of the workday. Push it a little bit further to 5 o'clock, depending on how people feel. But what we'd really like to leave today with is a set of recommendations and suggestions, really concrete recommendations and suggestions that we could take to our decision makers regarding how we can best manage sharks in terms of education. What are the kinds of things that this group feels the community in Palau and our decision makers need to know about sharks and about shark conservation and management? So education will be one category. Also research. What kinds of information do we need about our sharks and the impacts that they have, not just on our ecosystems, but socioeconomic impacts that they have. We have a thriving dive industry that depends a great deal on the quality of the health of our shark populations. So that's the second category. The third category would be any recommendations that anyone has on policy and how Palau's laws need to be improved, maintained, and even in terms of management. One example that I can share, because I know we're all on the same page on this issue, is the issue of strengthening our observer program in Palau and make sure that we actually do have a strong observer program in terms of the commercial fisheries and that there are observers on board, possibly even looking at the idea of mandating observer cameras. Because we know that it's difficult to ensure that every fishing vessel in Palau's waters actually has an observer on board. So that's what I'm hoping that we leave with in terms of a concrete output today. But before we move forward, I just want to very quickly, is there anything else that anybody in the room would like to be sure that we leave with today, that it would make it a valuable use of your time if you can leave with whatever it is that you might have on your mind, other than those recommendations. Is everybody in agreement that that would be a valuable outfit for today's meeting? We are having a meeting with members of OEK tomorrow evening with our friends who are here from Pew Foundation. We'll be sharing those recommendations. We're also organizing meetings with President and members of his administration. And we're also strategizing for the next year, what kinds of achievements we hope to achieve over the next year in terms of shark conservation. Any other comments on what we hope to accomplish today? Okay, great. First of all, let me introduce Mandy Epison, who doesn't really need, I think, introduction with this group. Everybody knows Mandy. She's a great photographer, and she's graciously willing to share some photos that she's taken of shark conservation with us. So,
it's just about 10 minutes of the different kind of sharks here. You're probably wondering what the rest is doing up there. The first 3 shots are just pictures of the Napoleon wrestles at Blue Corner, because in the last week somebody's been shooting at them again. So I just wanted to get that out and show you guys. The rest is all sharks. So I'll just let it play. If you have any questions, maybe afterwards you can. Yeah, the front channel is a good place for that. So we have a sandy, shallow channel. So it's only 40, 60. to chase the bait fish. Sort of like the miniature sardine run of Palau.
If I have a girlfriend and she's misusing me, I go home at night, maybe I'm lonely, well, not maybe I am home. I pick up Lucille, and we clean out those funny sounds that sound good to me, Sometimes I get to bed, I can't even say nothing.
What kind of fish are these to be?
These different species of scat, and around November, we found these huge balls around the Montego Channel. That's when the bull sharks were around the whole area.
How deep is this?
You know, if I can sing.
Well, they come up with the big ones of shell, where it's surrounding the big school of that, it's deep. That's what
Every day we do it. I don't think I still can do it. So Lucille don't want to put up with the glue. I think I'm pretty bad about that. What nobody say to me like Lucille? Hey, Lucille.
Jack's hang around to look at, snatch anything with the shark crabs?
No, the jacks always hang there, and the sharks feel like they swim right through the schools.
Huh.
I like the seven things. I
It's
like
not very nice, chasing the sharks.
but I can get a little
That's why they're making that. Last year, August. Certain sharks like the one on the right, it's missing part of his dorsal fin, and you know them on the website, and they show up more than a mile away, just to chase
You know, I got a lot of you want to know why I called Lucille. Lucille has practically saved my life 2 or 3 times. No kidding. Really happened. I remember once I was in an automobile accident. I was at a car stop. That's one time I saved my life. The way I came out the name of Lucille, I was over in Twist Island. I know you've never heard of that. And one night, the guy started a ball over there, started rolling. And the guy that was mad with his little head, when she fell over on this gas tank that was running, he The gas power overflow. Buildings are on fire. No, hurry up. Trying to save the city. The lady that stopped me, the girl that came to save the street.
It's the new point regulation, they just want to have it passed by June channel.
And that's been Lucille ever since the street. One more now, Lucille.
Outside, it's usually, there's those, products,
Is that the girl with
this was one of the
tiger shark?
This bird was getting legs bitten.
That's the bite marks, man. The tiger.
Oh, there's a way
Bite marks.
chopping away.
Nobody else was going to do
That's true.
Yeah, it's bird closer to He could easily make a mistake, you and the whale, dude.
Twin brother. I'm gonna miss him.
It's a good brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Buff.
Yeah.
So all different kinds of sharks.
That's him. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This was this year.
Is that a tiger?
You saw that thing on Discovery Channel or something? The guy got his calf muscle bit by that shark.
Is that all they know?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was this year.
A tiger shark.
That
This was in June this year. It was a sperm whale carcass off of Narrow area.
And you were in the water.
some big boys, man.
Using it for
Bird.
food.
So who would
Kevin Costner.
It's Mandy. That I
she
should
was
have
in the water while this tiger shark.
We got out there,
Jim?
that was really cool.
Every tree on the.
They were
Sometimes. We got
This
some.
one was during Navy, and then a week later,
No,
we saw
that
the
was
same
not
shark
bad.
with a different type
Oh,
of species.
You got that?
bit by what?
Another shark.
By the time. Wow.
Four plays.
See the rainbow
Tough love, tough love. These guys chase the That's a long
Because of the fishing and all of these, that's when you start seeing a lot of this.
Thank you so much. Really great reminder of why we're here in this discussion. Many of you have met our friends Matt Rand and Julie Arner from the Pew Foundation in Washington, D.C. Matt and Julie are here at the invitation of Speaker Nicole, who met them while he was in Washington, D.C. And they're here to find out what they can do to help us with some of the issues that we're facing right now in terms of shark conservation and sustainability. So I know that they've met with a lot of you in the room, but I know that there are also people in the room that they haven't met. And one of the primary purposes of this meeting is not so much just for Matt and Julie, but also for all of us to hear from each other too, on what we're doing and just sort of get on the same page as far as what we can do together to ensure that sharks are sustained. So if it's okay, Nat and Julie, I'll ask everybody in the room just to introduce yourself and maybe what organization you're here on behalf of and what your interest in, why you have a specific interest in shark conservation. Start with you, Jeff, and then we'll just go around the room.
Jeff Barabee, Roland Productions, OTV. Our interest is generally just conservation. The health of Palau is important to our business, and also I think most of the people in my office personally. So concerned citizens.
Julie Leno from Your Charitable Trust. Interested in shark conservation globally and really impressed by the laws that are currently on the books here in Palau. And
Charlene is also an advisor to the board of the Palau Conservation Society and is a former board member of the Palau Conservation Society.
Charitable Trust, I'm a fisherman, I'm a diver, and I direct Pew's global shark conservation efforts.
Yeah, my name is David Samuel. I'm a fisherman. Working for the Global Resources.
Good afternoon, my name is Imran Al-Khalid. I'm also with Conservation and Enforcement for State, and so I think our role is very clear. But I would like to say up here, conservation is first and then law enforcement next.
My name is Katsuyoshi Yamaguchi. I'm working now at EcoSport Corporation Splash Dive Center.
My name is Tim Federico. I'm a dive master with St. Kitts, and I work very closely with the divers and ponies, shark ponies.
My name is Tova Bornowski, and I represent here the Micronesian Shark Foundation, and we're conducting shark research with AIMS, that's Australian Institute of Marine Science.
Also doing some education work as well.
Also.
My name is Takuya Mizukari. I work at Edison, and I'm a voting member of BTA. And because there is a lot of Japanese company and dive shop here, I'll be the sort of the bridge to introduce what we are doing here at the moment. And he's my assistant.
Okay. Siska Volt, here as a BTA board member as well. And of course you realize that as an organization we try to influence policy regarding sustainable use of our natural resources, and really the hot item on the table right now is the repeal of the shark conservation or yeah.
I'm Jeremy Keane, and I'm wearing multiple hats here. I'm the manager of a dive center, and I've been personally very active in shark conservation, and I'm also a board member of BTA and the Chamber of Commerce, and I work with those organizations to try to bring, continue the protection of sharks in Palau.
Good afternoon. My name is Ian Ortlai Turvet. I work for the Division of Marine Law Enforcement. Also, I am a certified observer. We go out on these fishing boats and collect data on fishing activities, also sharks.
Good afternoon, I'm Leah Asanuma Gilham on behalf of BTA with the Board of BTA, Belang Tourism Association.
Good afternoon, my name is Francis from Makassar, and I'm here on behalf of Chamber of Commerce.
Hi, I'm Bert from Nickel Marine. I'm definitely for shark protection.
I'm Pat Cola. I run the Coral Reef Research Foundation, and we pretend we're not very interested in sharks, but we actually are very interested in sharks. I'm trained as a marine ichthyologist, and I've been working with shark biologists for the last 40 years. and we do have some research projects going on now in Palau, peripheral which involve sharks.
I'm Cliff Terry. I'm with my own architecture firm here, TRV Architects. Environmentally conscious guy and a PADI certified diver for 36 years.
It's okay, I'm fine. Good afternoon, my name is Darren De Leon. I'm the Managing Director for the Palau Visitors Authority.
Thanks for coming.
So good afternoon, my name is Fagan. I'm working here at Ferguson. Good afternoon, my name is
I
Sherry.
think while we're continuing, maybe we can switch the computers so that as Heather is going to take notes for us. So this list of recommendations and suggestions is something that is very transparent, everybody can see. So we're just going to switch that over to the projector here. And Matt is going to talk a little bit about what he and Julie are working on with Pew Foundation. And he's also very kindly offered to facilitate this discussion on what kinds of things actually need to be done in Palau so we can really become more strategic in our approach to shark conservation. And so that he can participate.
Great. Well, I like to stand and walk around a bit. So thanks everyone for coming and taking time. And I know we've hit a number of you up for already probably more time than you had thought this week to talk about sharks, but thank you very much. So our organization is based in Washington, D.C. It's an international NGO organization. We focus on a lot of different things, on the death penalty, on healthcare, all kinds of different issues. But we do have a strong program on the environment, and mostly on marine conservation issues. I actually worked on the Magnuson-Stevens Act, which is the United States law for fisheries. So I've been engaged in marine conservation policy and marine fisheries policy for about 6 or 7 years now. We've been engaged in shark conservation to a low level for about a decade. We've been watching the global kind of statistics and science on sharks for quite a while, for about a decade. Recently, we brought in a group of experts from around the world, scientists and policy experts, and a whole host of people into Washington, D.C. to have a dialogue about the state of sharks in the world's oceans. And we had some of the preeminent scientists that publish in Nature magazine and Science magazine on shark issues come in and give us their perspective on what they're seeing out in the world's oceans. So you probably already know most of these statistics. I'll throw out a few of them that got our attention, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that they're predicting, which is not something you put down in a paper very often. You know, normally science is based off of pure observation and not predictions. So anyhow, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, it's a science-based organization. They have a statistic that's 38% of the world's sharks are either threatened or near threatened with extinction. That's the species, 38% of the species. There's another 35% of the species that are unknown. So largely, there's a lot of species of sharks out there that are in a lot of trouble. Not all of them, but certainly quite a number. There's been a study out there for quite a while by Boris Worm and the late Ray Myers. There's two of the big marine ecologists that kind of are on the cutting edge of some of the marine science that indicates that the world's oceans have been depleted for the large predatory fish, all the ones that us fishermen might like to catch, like trevally and big tuna, by about 90%. So the depletion is definitely there. The UNFAO, when you look at the UNFAO statistics, it's 70% of the world's fisheries are fully exploited or overexploited at this point. So, you know, I could paint a picture of some of the other problems: ocean acidification, climate change, there's a lot of problems out there in the world's oceans, but we started looking at sharks because sharks are that keystone species in a lot of ecosystems that people actually get interested in. You know, I've got a 3-year-old son. He wants to know about the sharks. He doesn't ask me about bonefish or tarpon or trevally. He wants to know about the sharks. And the sharks are a good indication, I think, of the health of the ocean. It's a good way to actually relate to people on the health of the ocean. So we started to talk to some of the scientists. Some of the scientists are now predicting, if things continue at the pace that they are, about 1 million sharks being removed from the ocean a week. 1 million sharks a week. That's a low estimate. That's the only one that's scientifically documented at this point. 73 million sharks annually. We will lose a large percentage of the big sharks, the ones that people know about, in the next 50 years. So in our lifetime, we could lose maybe that 38% of those shark species that are out there in the world's oceans, and quite certainly more if things continue the way that they are. So the Pew Charitable Trust decided to start a global conservation effort to conserve what's left of the world's sharks and to stop the decline. So in March, our board approved a project to get engaged in shark conservation globally. And so we're going to work on a number of different forums to try to protect sharks globally. We're going to work at the United Nations. We're going to work at the Convention for the International Trade in Endangered Species. We're going to be working at the International Fishery Management Organizations, the RFMOs, like the Western and Central Pacific Fishery Commission. And we'll also be working in the United States to pass new laws that can help actually put pressure on the rest of the world to conserve sharks and actually be a sustainable situation and not a declining, rapid decline. So we started looking around and seeing where we can put our efforts in and what might be helpful. And almost immediately we got contacted by people from outside our organization saying actually they had copies of this. They actually had copies of Dermot's web blogs. This is S844. And they had said, we've been to Palau, we've seen the sharks at Palau. This is a spectacular place. Nowhere else in the world is there something so special as Palau's ecosystem. But this really concerns us. So people from Discovery Channel started sending us saying, hey, look at this, National Geographic, and even from the U.S. Congress. Staff of the U.S. Congress, actually staff of the Natural Resources Committee, the folks that were just out to talk about the compact, actually sent us this information and said, if you guys are going to be involved in shark conservation, you ought to look at what's happening in Palau, or what could happen in Palau, because it's a spectacular place. It's known for its conservation globally. It's important to protect what Palau has. And these are people from all over the place that were sending this to us. So we started making some phone calls and some emails and started talking to people about what's actually going on. And we got in touch with Noah. Noah was a Pew Ocean Fellow, and I got some grant money for some science and research that he was doing. And we had a conversation about what was going on, and Noah invited us to come out to kind of see what was happening firsthand. So we've been here now for 5 days now, and been out diving with the sharks, and I have to tell you, it's the most unbelievable dive that I've ever done. Was this morning at Blue Corner, and there's no place that I've seen on this planet that's anywhere close to what you guys have here in your resource. So we'd be happy to do whatever we can do to help allow conserved sharks, if that's what Palau wants to do. So it's my opinion that we could talk about statistics and economics, and I have plenty of the figures here. We were talking about it with the council chiefs a little bit ago. There's a study on the Great Barrier Reef, and there are no-take marine protected areas on gray reef sharks and black-tip sharks. in the no-take protected areas of the Great Barrier Reef. And they're finding that they, even in the no-take protected areas, are declining annually by 7% for the blacktip and 17% for the gray reef sharks. And they attribute that to just a minor amount of poaching. Because sharks are so biologically different than tuna, which have 1,000 times the ability to reproduce, sharks, you know, gray reef sharks, it's how long before they sexually mature? It's about 7 years, and then they're only having a few pups, 1 to 6 pups. They're biologically very different than most bony fish, so it's extremely difficult to try to say you could have a sustainable harvest of sharks. They're more like people than tuna. So it's definitely, I think, an important issue for Palau to address and think about. My view is that Palau is known for this incredible conservation place. And you have one of the strongest laws in the world for shark conservation. I don't think most of the world knows that. So it's my opinion that you have an opportunity to say, change a few things, and as Teo was saying, you know, probably better enforcement, maybe a radar so that you know what's going on out there, and that there's not the illegal fishing that's going on out there, because that is happening. Everybody knows that. A few minor things, and I think you could call yourself a world sanctuary for sharks. And I think that would get a lot of international recognition. Plus it would help save the sharks, and we can talk about economics. You know, one gray reef shark in the Bahamas is estimated to be worth $250,000 for tourism. So anyhow, we can talk about those statistics, we can look at that science, but I just wanted to thank you guys all for coming today and your time this week to talk about sharks. And if we can be of help, we would love to be of help. I think the council chiefs have asked us for some help, and we're happy to help them. And so whatever we can do to be of help, we're happy to do so. We have lots of ideas, but kind of wanted to turn it over to some of you, and I know you had some ideas on the observers and kind of enforcement and the radar. So maybe ask you about some of those ideas.
Well, it's educational, how the shark may the process, and other quality indicators of the shark. And what I'm curious to know is that there are many people, organizations working in terms of the shark awareness. I want to know how people foundation can be able to assist in funding mechanism for these organizations money.
Just a photographer, we don't have an organization.
Yeah, maybe you need money to.
Well, I think one way we could assist is, I think we could fund an economic analysis to the value of sharks in Palau's waters. And we certainly could help fund efforts that, say, some of the other groups that are engaged here to conserve sharks. That's what we would do. We would not come in and actually try to do something here ourselves. We would ask people here to do education and efforts, and would fund their work.
And the other concern, is that instead of the sharks are in two ecosystems. There are people sharks and also the colorful shark. And we may address the five types of shark from these little boats. And we've been fortunate to get some funding from NOAA, some equipment, including a shark and turtles and things like that. Although that's a lot of government, but as I said earlier, when you came and visit me, is that there are some recommendations that to leave the law as it is and continue to develop and strengthen the Observers program. Also put more stringent documentation on doctors. So that way we can also sort of streamline the potential unregulated taking of sharks. Include those in the bonds, not the one doctors.
I think what we could do there too is, we will talk to them about their new technologies in VMS, their new technology in logbooks, electronic logbooks. I think one thing that you brought up that I'm very interested to find out about is the military has the ability to see everything that's going on out there. We have connections with the Pentagon. I've been over to the Pentagon many times to talk to them about ocean conservation issues. So I'm interested we can talk to them about what the technological feasibility is of maybe advancing the ability to observe in open oceans in big areas. So I will commit to doing those three things when we're back in DC and sending the information back here for you or anybody else. And we can look into how to potentially find some funding sources to increase that ability. So within the next, when we go back to Washington, D.C., within the next month, I promise to go talk to people at the Pentagon and at NOAA about technological abilities on observers, on VMS, and on potentially a big radar effort to see what's going on there in the open ocean.
And I think it's really good to focus on the over time they've been very involved in the education awareness. I think it's also good to focus on those people and try to assist in providing funding to do this shared awareness and education. Whereas for the government, we can sort of look at strengthening our approach in observation program. So,
can I ask a question too, just so I have a feel for? I've talked with a lot of you about the dynamics in Palau. Does anybody have any feeling that what was going on with S8-44? Does anybody think that it was a good idea, and if so, why? Or what was the rationale? Why did this start? You know, I mean, it seems to me that everybody we've spoken to around the table does not like the idea of S8-44. It seems to me, from an outsider's perspective, that the sharks would get wiped out pretty quickly. They're biologically, they don't come back quickly. We've got a population in the United States, dusky sharks, it's going to take 400 years to recover. But just interested in other people's thoughts on S8-44, and if it's unanimous that it's not a good idea, how do we ensure that it doesn't go forward?
Stringent documentation, I think if we open a window of opportunity at the moment, we just thought we saw the vessels reports yesterday. Although there is a complete ban on catching sharks, but this with the limited resources, we cannot control our waters, so they use that limitation to catch sharks. This is money out of it. If we do allow a window of opportunity, then we can even begin to really monitor it and enforce our sustainability.
So I guess I sounds like you're against it, huh?
I'm not. I couldn't say I'm against it, but I'm supporting it. I think it's been working it's been a fisherman for a long time, and I understand that the shark is on top of the food chain, and I think we need to be mindful that the shark people.
Okay, could we maybe just go around the table and get other people's thoughts on allowing commercial shark fishing in Palau's waters?
I think you already know, but I just want to let everybody know that if you don't know already, the report for the Committee on Resources, Commerce, Trade, and Development already came out. It's dated August 4th, and this is in response to Senate Bill 8-44. It's 2 pages long, so I can give this to you, and then if anybody's interested, I can email a copy to you guys. If you could just.
What does it say?
John, you read it? It's 2 pages long.
Just summarize.
Summarize, yeah.
Well, basically, they want to table the bill.
So they've decided they're not sure about this bill either. Even the Congress that introduced it is questioning whether or not it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's saying it's not going to be commercially viable, and there's no enforcement. The enforcement is too weak as it is to try to go ahead and pass that bill.
It seems that almost Palau, even it was put out there, tabled, and now it's even, the Congress is even saying, maybe this is not a good thing for Palau. It doesn't seem to me that, I don't see much of benefit for Palau for catching the sharks. That's good. How about, yeah? Okay, so it seems like most people are, Tova, I know you're not in support of commercial shark fishing. No, I don't, no.
You're preaching to the choir.
Preaching to the choir, yeah, okay. Okay, good, well,
I think,
Just that, unified opposition to this Senate Bill 8-44.
it sounds like there's unified opposition from the business sector, from a lot of the government sector, and now maybe even from the Congress, that they said, they put it out there and said, well, maybe this wasn't the right way for us to go, let's reconsider, and they tabled it, and maybe that's what the letter generally says. So, okay, I guess, yes?
I believe the committee, I believe that's the committee report that came out when that committee presented it to the third regular session, and they actually didn't table it. They gave their recommendations out on the floor, and some people watched the session. Cisco watched it as well. I watched it, and they brought it out. That was their recommendations, but there were other senators who were opposed to the recommendation and wanted to look at it again. They thought it might be a viable, industry source of money, and they would like to look at it. So there was some, bickering on the table, and then they decided to defer it. But it's not tabled. Take it clean. That means clean it out, but they haven't.
So it's difficult if people do not like the legislation, an effort to ensure that their views are known, to make sure that it does not pass. And then I guess my view is that Palau has the ability now, with the law already in place, to be known as the world's shark sanctuary. Right now you've got some of the strongest laws in the world for shark conservation. You've got some of the strongest laws for marine conservation. You've got an amazing marine resource where people will fly 30 hours from Washington, D.C. to come out and go dive in your waters and see the sharks. I think to me it's a perfect idea for you all to get credit for what you've already done, which is you've already protected the sharks in your waters. And it seems to me that if you made some small changes, you increased enforcement and observers, and you did a few small things, you could go out to the world and say, we are the world's shark sanctuary. And I think that maybe if you had some conversations with the leadership in your country, you may be able to encourage them to actually move in that direction instead of a long-term direction is a shark sanctuary, and maybe I think that might be a better way of actually proceeding instead of actually trying to commercialize shark fishing. I don't know what other people think about that.
The 844 aside for a second. But the one area probably that does need to be strengthened is that it's very specifically targeted at foreign fishing vessels, and that language probably needs to be changed up to address commercial fishing. I know that there's a lot of sort of caution in terms of the kinds of restrictions you place on subsistence use, and our local communities and those fishermen being able to, if they need to get a shark, get a shark. But it's the commercial aspect that's really dangerous. And then I just wanted to just sort of flag for everyone. I think my perception, as I've heard all of the discussions that have come out, including discussions that have been had with Senator Guecki, who did introduce this bill, was that the intention obviously is not shark depletion. And in fact, he considers himself somewhat of a conservationist. But the card that's played in this issue is Palau is a community that frowns on waste. And bycatch, the perception that's being cultivated is that bycatch, if you just throw it away, is waste. And why are we wasting this resource? So that's the one card that's played on this discussion. The other card that's played, and Via and I were just sort of whispering about it, is that sharks are nuisances, particularly to local fishermen, and can be dangerous. And so I think in terms of, if we're asking about what are the messages that we need to get out and strengthen in terms of education and awareness, those are the kinds of perceptions that need to be dispelled about shark. And this economic analysis that you're talking about helping us with, I think can go a long way towards helping us to deflect some of this. Why are we wasting bycatch? Is it really waste? And in other countries that allow for taxing or revenue generation from bycatch, what's happened to their tourism industry? What is the value of bycatch versus limiting as much as possible bycatch? And then just one last thing, because I think it's important, Director Samu, I know that Bureau of Marine Resources has so much on their plate, and so does our marine law enforcement. They don't have nearly the resources that they need to be able to enforce this, especially on the high seas, or especially in our EEZ. We have, I think, 2 observers in Palau, which is just crazy to me. But there are other ways that we can address it, like mandating observer cameras, and we talked about this. And maybe one way that we can be thinking about our collaboration with Pew is piloting a program where we do mandate observer cameras on foreign fishing vessels, so that if there isn't an observer, ideally you want to have both to keep everybody honest, right? But if you don't, if the observer misses the boat, which happens, then at least you've got a camera. Because we have no idea what's going on in our EEZ, and we have some countries that have a blank check to be able to go out and take whatever they want, however they want. And so I think we really need to be talking this.
There's some bill that introduced that's going to basically root it. And the OAK is no longer what they call the House of Wisdom. It's not a silent organization where it's all in secret. As soon as something happens, the world knows about it instantaneously. And you mentioned earlier Discovery Channel and National Geographic area. What is the situation in that regard in terms of the perception of things that get done in places like this?
Because of its reputation and what they know about it. I imagine that I've heard that there have been some cancellations from people that were going to come that decided we're not going to come because we're not supporting that from some of the dive industry already. I imagine if this passed, there would be a lot of people looking at it and saying, "No, this is not the place where we want to go. We want to go to a place that's pristine, that has conservation as its top kind of issue, at its principle." So I imagine that even just introducing a bill like this, whether it was intentional or not, probably had some damage on the reputation of Palau as a conservation nation, which it has a great reputation, and I don't think it's done much, but I was surprised to have so many people actually go to us. We had a guy come to our office in Washington, D.C. when we were talking about the domestic legislation with Senator Kerry and Congressman Gordillo, and he had a packet of information with him about Palau sharks and this bill. And he said, he gave it to me, he said, if you're doing shark conservation, you should know about this. And he had a whole packet he brought from California. So, you know, people are definitely watching, and that I think the dive community especially is a close-knit community. There's blogs all over the place, there's magazines all over the place. So that goes pretty quickly, I think. So I think the reputation for Palau could go the opposite way and say, if you created a world sanctuary for shark, which you largely already have done, you were going to get a tremendous amount of attention through the world for actually moving in the conservation direction.
I think like the real point is more views from the community. But I think since RPPL 6/26 need to be revisited and capture the essence of the importance of the tourism industry in relation to sharks. I think there are two things. Pelagic sharks and shark that people do. And I understand that maybe Professor Shark may not visit the reefs.
We used to see a lot more pelagic sharks on the reefs. Those you don't see much anymore. The like pressure sharks, silver tips, the tiger sharks are out there, but you only see them very rarely. They're not the regular reef sharks. So the only difference I've seen in 25 years of diving here is that the reef sharks to me look like the numbers are about the same, but I don't see the pelagic sharks that we used to see on the reefs. It's like they're further out or they live in.
Yeah, like those information should be documented, personal observation. And but I think the law only sort of restrict to these foreign fishing vessels. But if we can revisit the law and then come up with rules in order to capture the essence of tourism industry, of how sharks play an important role to the tourism industry. And carry, okay, I'll stop for now.
Yeah, to get their perspective because, well, it's the second largest industry in Palau. And I think that, you know, you're missing a big part of the picture if you're not talking to them.
Two comments. One, you can look at a very, very good example, and that's the Maldives, because in the 90s they allowed shark finning, and a lot of conservation groups, actually not so much in the US, but mainly in Europe, boycotted and announced Maldives as the enemies of the sharks, etc. 2003, they restricted it more, but the beginning of this year, they banned it completely.
Yeah.
But it's slightly too late. But you can show this as a very good example because this country, their main income is from tourism, whether it's not only diving, just island, tropical island vacation, but they realize that their benefits have gone downhill because of their supporting such industry of fishing. So you can look at this as a very, very good example because now it is totally illegal to shark, fish, or fin in the Maldives. So you can, I think that answers quite a lot of what the discussion was. But regarding the shark sanctuary, I don't know, have you ever been to Cocos in Costa Rica?
I have not been. I know that I know a lot about it, including the weeks to study Cocos. Cocos is the hammerhead migration of the world, and that's where all the hammerhead migration is. Unfortunately, they are getting heavily targeted, and they are getting wiped out pretty quickly.
Exactly, okay. So Cocos have been a sanctuary for many, many, many years by Costa Rica, who, as a country, has the largest mass of parks, like national parks and sanctuaries in the Americas. This has been a sanctuary for many, many years. And quite an organized country such as Costa Rica, with Navy, with rangers that live on that island, we personally took some over to the island with a lot of support from a lot of organizations. They cannot fight in a sanctuary, in a tiny area. When you want to create Palau a sanctuary for sharks, it sounds fantastic. I would love for it to happen. In reality, I think we need to look at a more realistic picture, because Palau has only one patrol boat. Teo here cannot enforce anything
I have an observation about that too, but there's a difference of what you guys have here to what's out in Cocos. Cocos is a little small island out in the middle of the EEZ, 300 miles off of the coast of Costa Rica. And the area of protection is very small. I believe it's 6 miles only around that little island. 10, okay. They're talking about increasing it, but they're not talking about increasing it big enough. So the problem is, you've got an area that's way out in the middle of the ocean. You only have 10 miles of protection around it. And guess what? What do the fishermen do? The long-lining fishermen that are taking the fins back to Asia, they go right around it. Sometimes they go in it. But it's very difficult to enforce something like that, because the fisherman says, I caught my fish right here. I caught the sharks. I caught the hammerheads right here. They may have caught them inside, but it's a migration that goes through. So if you figure out which way the sharks are coming, you plant your fishing gear there, and you wait for the hammerheads to come in, and you catch the hammerheads. The difference here is, you've got a law already on the books that says no shark products can be caught in Palau. It's not perfect, right? Because we know there's illegal fishing going off. We know that there's not enough enforcement. But any boat that comes into the harbor here, if it has shark products on it, that they get a fine, they get arrested. We saw that. You are so much further ahead of just about any other nation. You already are a sanctuary. Now, granted, it's not perfect. And I don't, when you do marine conservation and protection, when they did Papahanaumakuakea out in the northwest Hawaiian Islands, 180,000 square miles of no-take marine reserve, it's definitely not perfect, because they have the same problem even in the United States of enforcing something like that, because the world's oceans are being targeted for everything. Sea cucumber, tuna, sharks, whatever it may be. But what you've got right now, in my view, so you've got a law in the books. I think you got to do some things like have been mentioned, like there's that loophole that says a foreign fishing company can come in and purchase a vessel as long as they've got a local kind of front group to do the commercial long lining for sharks right now, right? I mean, that's a loophole that's in the law right now. If somebody wanted to come in from wherever, from China, and buy a license through a local Palauan group, they could go off and catch all the sharks. They could catch the gray reef sharks. They could legally catch any sharks, wipe them out right now. So I think that's a big loophole that probably needs to be changed and gotten rid of. Enforcement, if you create a world sanctuary for sharks, you can do a lot of things to actually make it better. I mean, you're going to get a lot of international attention if Palau does that, which would include, I mean, it's Palau's law. Palau says anybody that comes into our waters that we catch with shark fins, we're going to confiscate your vessel and we're going to give you a huge fine. It's Palau's law. So that's a major deterrent. If you know that you will get caught, it's a deterrent. So if you're a vessel that's going to be doing IUU, you're going to think twice about coming over Palau's border. You're also going to attract international attention. I know Australia is already interested in Palau's waters, and I know the P3's been flying over. You're going to have more attention from the international community that's now recognizing the global decline in sharks. Even the RFMOs, the fishery managers that their livelihood is tuna. I was in Spain about 2 months ago. Even the RFMOs, their whole business is commercial fishing for tuna, basically. They all know, I can share the language, that sharks are depleting so quickly, they're actually just worried about the world perception that they're allowing the extinction of sharks. So they actually passed language. They got together, the COBE2 it's called. And it was in Spain. And they put a resolution forward to say we now actually have to start protecting sharks. and that's the fishery managers. So, in my opinion, if you make this sanctuary here in Palau, and you get your leadership and your community behind it, you're going to have so much more than you already have as far as resources to protect the sharks that you've got. I just think to me, it's just a visionary thing that you've got an opportunity. Granted, it's not perfect, but none of these things are perfect. None of the national parks are perfect. I talked about this when we talked about marine protected areas. When they created Yellowstone National Park in the States, it was Teddy Roosevelt did it. There was hunting going on in the national park. People were killing buffalo and wolves and bears. But now, because you've got so many communities that are around it, nobody dares go in there and hunt for an elk or for a bear or for a wolf or whatever, because now people are all watching it. So it's happened over time, and it's not an easy thing to do that. But to me, you know, if you set it up, if you put it in your law, if the community is behind it, then somebody coming in from the outside, it's going to happen, right? But you're going to have a lot more focus on, hey, no, we're proud of what we've got here. We're going to protect it, and the international community will also recognize it, in my opinion. And so will the media. So that's my view on kind of why it's different. And I think it's personally a great thing for Palau. And if there's anything we can do, if people in Palau think that's a good idea, we will put whatever we can in to help that. Economic analysis, if we can get some science, if we need to try to find better resources for monitoring. If Palau decides to do this in its leadership, we'll try to get international media attention, which we're quite good at. So anyhow, that's my colloquy on protection in the marine environment.
It's all, again, what we all agree. I mean, but in reality, how can we, right now the law still exists and it hasn't been changed, but it's still very difficult to protect it. And I'm just seeking some of your knowledge on how, you see the fishing vessels, most of them, the ones that are getting caught, it's pure luck. Because what they do is they go and they catch those sharks. And everybody, you ask Ian, and they go in the middle of the ocean, they meet the mother ship, and they just transfer everything. They come without shark nets to the port. Nice and dandy, they're clean.
Yeah.
But everybody knows that's their common practice. Okay, so you created a sanctuary. They'll never come with shark fins or shark carcasses to people out, but they'll keep on doing it because that's how they make their livelihood. And they'll just load it in the middle of the ocean. Nobody will know because at the moment you have 2 observers and maybe you have 4. But the masses of fishing vessels that are doing it is like, this is like needles in a haystack. And the reason I brought Costa Rica, it's not that I wish it will happen, I'm just showing you what's in reality. And the reason I brought Cocos Island is that even a much bigger country such as Costa Rica, and even a small speck in the ocean that's protected, they can't even protect that little small speck. And their rangers were killed or shot, and so even a big country such as Costa Rica, for a much, much smaller area, cannot do much. How can a small, young republic can protect such a noble idea?
Tova, I'll give you my idea on Costa Rica. Again, what that does is, instead of having that small area, it's a larger area, and it's going to happen, I agree. We'll still have IUU fishing. IUU fishing is going to happen until the dynamic changes with consumption. As long as there's a lot of money in shark products, there's going to be illegal catching of sharks. It's just like drugs, okay? But I think the way to improve it is to set up the protection. What you're saying to anybody that comes into your waters, hey, we care about this. If you're going to come into our waters and take our sharks, we're going to set up stricter fines. Maybe we confiscate your boat. Whatever it may be, and then you also get international attention. You need to get international resources. I know Australia has helped with international resources. I think you need to get the United States help for international resources, and you improve. It's not going to be overnight. You're right. It's still going to be a problem, but you improve. That's my vision. I think you can get there. It's going to take some time. But what you've got is, you've already got something strong, and it's not perfect. But if you make some good changes in your law here, you can go out to the rest of the world and say, this is what we are, this is our statement to the world. We're protecting our sharks. You come into our waters, we're going to fine you heavy. We're going to ask for international support for the conserved sharks. We're going to ask for more observer money, more vessels. And the international community, as I said, has already recognized that there is a problem with the world's sharks. They don't know how to address it completely. They're getting it. They're trying to figure it out. But that's part of what we're going to try to do. Demand will have to change. We'll have to decrease demand. But I really think, in my view, there's a few things you can do now to actually go towards this, or at least get better in shark conservation. We probably have a lot of it down. One is, in my view, I think the community needs to just be clear that commercial shark fishing in our waters is not what we want. So it's letters. I think the Elders Council, I'm not pronouncing that right, the chiefs have said they want to send a message that says this is not the direction that we want to go in. We do not want commercial shark fishing in our waters. I know that the chamber and all your businesses have already said that clearly. I would keep that message going out there. This is not the direction we want to go in, just to be clear, because I've been around legislators long enough to know that economic downturn goes and people are looking for a way to bring in some money quickly. Things change, you know. So anyhow, I think that you keep up the message, you keep up some press attention. I think you start to talk to other people in the community to address some of these things where I know some people don't like sharks, and that's fine, you know. Try to do some education about what the role is. I know you all already do this. I think it's just a matter of continuing to do that, talking to the leaders, and starting to move that forward. And we're happy to help kind of lay out what a plan might look like, education might look like. All right?
I think I wanted to address, unfortunately, he stepped down. The not required is the commercial fishing industry to a certain extent. So I just want to say we will try, Yalap and I will try to coordinate a meeting before you leave with members of the commercial fishing industry, and I think I'll consult with you on that. We should be at that meeting. Because that's a good point. We did meet, I just wanted to let everybody know, we did meet with people we allowed today. We're meeting with the council chiefs, and we're meeting with the manager of the OEK tomorrow, and we're trying to, President's off island at the moment, he's back early tomorrow morning, and we're trying to coordinate a meeting with him and our, and one of his fisheries advisors, which is Vic Weber, who also happens to be on our board for when they get back. So I just wanted to let everybody know. And then also to let everybody know that PCS is collaborating with Mike Leisure Shark Foundation on some school-based shark education stuff. So that's coming up this year. Whether we call it a shark sanctuary or not, I think the point is, and I get what you're saying, Toba, I think that there probably is some resistance to the idea of a shark sanctuary right now, whether it's minimal or whatever it is. But the point is that we have that kind of in place already. We are a shark sanctuary on the books. And with just a little bit of tweaking and improving, we can really strengthen our approach to shark management and really ramp ourselves up in a way in which Palau would be yet a global leader in yet another area of resource management. Palau is well known for. So really excited about that. So yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't want us to get stuck on the...
Okay, good. Dermot?
I just got a couple of points to various things that were brought up. When Tiari made I found it very insightful. She said, how as a culture, opposed to waste. And likewise, they're also a culture that's very attuned and accustomed to sustainable practices. It's something they've, it's inbred in their system for years. That's how they survive, prior to modern age and resources being outstripped by technology. I mean, the basic system of sustainable use of resources is inherent in the Palau cultural system. So I think, you take that and you talk about public awareness. And most certainly we have a huge challenge with respect to enforcement. And but I think, until such time as that that is resolved, there are other things that we can do. When you talk about not choir, there are other groups that are not choir also, and that is the community. There are areas of the community who are getting this message that throwing shark fins away is wasteful. So what we need to do is also convert that. And I think you bring it backwards then and say, okay, where can we bring resources to bear to change perceptions and work on the people that need to be converted? I'm positive that, if the average clown on the street understood and saw with their own two eyes what does go on in the high seas, for example, what's been documented by the people on board P3s or can be, if they really saw what was going on in their own backyard with their resource and the rate of destruction that's being done, I think it would offend them, just their core understanding of sustainability. And that might be a way to help, garner additional support. And then also, I think, in the international community, yeah, I agree, making Palau a shark sanctuary, the points have already been made. It doesn't, it's not a magic wand to suddenly protect our sharks, but it's a huge step in the right direction. And we have to start helping ourselves first before we start asking others to help ourselves. And I'm positive that, with the right international focus, if we were to take this step, we could pull in an amazing amount of resources. We could bring an amazing amount of resources to bear to certainly beef up our enforcement. I mean, it's a very saleable message to David and Goliath. We are a UN member. There's lots of ways to go at it, but first we have to give those who would help us the tools to help us.
Yep.
The no fishing in the contiguous zone for 24 miles. So 24 12 miles stage jurisdiction was extended to another 12 miles. So no fishing, commercial fishing activity from these locally based foreign fishing vessels. But Palau is a member of the Foreign Fisheries Agency and also Tuna Commission. And there is a strong support and promotion of closing the high seas. And closing the high seas, so any vessel that goes into our waters must have a very good reason or have a legal authority to be in our zones. So at this time there is a fat closure in our adjacent high seas. Fat closure that is an aggregating device coming in on August 1st to September 31st. So there is a strong support to close the high seas between Palau, FSM, and so with those regional and international arrangements, protocols, and I think we really, although it's not, as you were saying, a magic wand that we can do it overnight, I think we have a very strong support from the region and international organization to address the issue of bycatch. Bycatch are non-targeted species. Bycatch is the fish that are caught in long line. And also there is an issue of pro-sailing activities. And there is also a formula that we can use in respect to the tonnage of the vessel. The bigger the tonnage of the vessel, one day trip is considered as two-day trip. So there are so many things that's happening. So if we already started our national approach to sustainability of the shark, very strong now. And the fishing vessel that recently we caught is a full IUU vessel. It's not licensed by Palau. It was before, but the license was terminated in November. So, and I think this, Ian recalled that I sent him email that there are 2 Taiwanese vessels that have been sort of harassing 2 Japanese fishing vessels. So there are some issues, but I think the protection of not only sharks, turtles, and swordfish, and other bycatch, they're also being addressed. Because the ecosystem is already, I don't have to preach, guys. The Tuna Commission and the Foreign Fisheries Agency and other purposes, Paris Tuna Agreement, FSM arrangement, the new treaty, that's why we see this assistance from Australia to fly over our zones. I think we're in the right direction. But we need to look at revisit our shark law and see how we can best serve our objectives and also address some issues related to the complaints of the fishermen. But I don't see that to be very much concern that we need to address.
So Tiara, did I cover your framework? I'm not sure I did. You had a good framework for the conversation. But
Yeah, I think it's in there, and I just, there's one more thing, and I really apologize because we really want to hear from everybody, so if I'm talking too much, which sometimes I do, I apologize, but we really want to hear from everybody. But I just wanted, just so that it gets in the record, the other thing is prohibiting offloading onto motherships on our EEZ. And I know we've talked about that a little bit. Just requiring them to come into ports for inspections.
Yes, that's
so just so that gets in the record.
That's in the fishing, uniform fishing agreement. Every vessels that are licensed to fish in Palau must offload in the port. If they transfer the ship elsewhere, they must get our authorization. And but transit to another vessel to offload in the port.
And then just to flag very quickly that the other strong perception that hopefully with the economic analysis and how we're able to interpret that and get that messaging back out to the public, we'll deal with this. The other perception is that, and this is why there's hesitancy about the shark sanctuary, and this also came up in our Woodbend meeting, is about benefits and where benefits are going in terms of local communities versus a tourism industry or a dive industry, which is largely perceived as being foreign. So I'm just going to be really transparent with you guys on this issue that this came up even in our meeting with the chiefs, where they're saying, as a conservationist, we get this a lot as well, you're so concerned about conserving sharks, what about the people of Palau? And the dive industry, that's tourists, that's foreigners, but what about the people of Palau? So hopefully with the information from this economic analysis, we can do a better job of communicating how local communities and the people of Palau benefit directly from the dive industry and from the tourism industry and from having our sharks on our reefs instead of on fishing boats. So.
I'd just like to reinforce that because that's something that the Palau Tourism Association and the Chamber of Commerce, by way of data, could certainly use, because we get that same argument that Tiara just mentioned, across the board is, developing Palau for whom, protecting Palau for whom, and the disconnect between the development of the tourism industry and benefits to the community. So that information could serve for many purposes, and to the degree that you could help or provide that would be very beneficial, I think.
Thierry, if I may introduce in terms of the fishermen and also in the recreational areas around the Rock Islands. I mean, sharks are, if you were to ask me, I would say there's less sharks now than there were 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But yet you don't see them that aggressive in recreational areas as well as in dive sites. And the reason with that is because they naturally survive in their own way. And find their food their own way. But one of the challenges that we're having now that's also part contributed by the tourism industry is the fact that they're allowing where there's ongoing shark feeding, shark feeding. So there's an interruption to the natural way a shark feeds itself. And these sharks are migrating animals. They don't just stay in one location. So if you're feeding them in Ngarmeals, for example, they remain in Ngarmeals and they don't go anywhere else. So if they get accustomed to seeing their food being given by people, these sharks are intelligent animals. When they see people, they assume that the people is supposed to be giving them food. So the fishermen, when they catch their cats, the shark is going after the fishermen because they think that the fisherman is supposed to be there catching fish for them, and it's the other way around. And at the recreational sites, it's also happening. You go to any rock island now. 10 years ago, when I was go to the rock islands, I sit in the shallow water and drink a beer and eat my lunch, and shark will never come to me. Now you just throw a piece of bread or whatever in the water, and 10 or 20 15 sharks start swimming around you, thinking that you're feeding them. So we are also causing the problem with the way sharks are being perceived as being aggressive and dangerous, because we're inviting and we're already damaging their natural way of taking care of themselves. So that the local community is looking at it in a negative sense, and their concern is the harm that it can do to their children also, and also to the fishermen. So that's another area that the tourism industry also has a fault in it by not discouraging shark feeding, but sort of letting it go and not doing anything.
I have a thought on that one. The local state or local tribe where the feeding takes place gets to confiscate the vessel for the local tribe. So the operator loses their vessel, and the local tribe gets it, right? So they can prove it. They get to keep the vessel.
Why not find a local operator?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, I'm saying
Partner, not the village.
No, I'm not saying find the village. I'm saying where it happens, if the feeding takes place, it gets caught. The law says, whether it's a state law or the national law says, the vessel goes to the local community where it's going to be impacted, right? Because if their kids are out swimming with the sharks there, the community gets impacted. So they get to keep the vessel of the operator that's feeding the fish. Wouldn't that be a major disincentive not to feed the fish?
Can I just check with Core State? Because most of this happens in Core State, because that's where the lion's share of tourism goes. Everything else we all know about, and we've all been jumping up and down about it. I don't know, can you correct me or just state, has Core State actually passed a law outlawing shark fishing or shark?
Yes, there is a law in place, and unfortunately my director just left the room, but the limit for fines that Core State can issue is $100. That's it.
That's
You can't
right.
go over $100. The law that is in place is it's very vague, but basically it just says you can feed fish, but as soon as you see sharks come up, you have to stop.
Okay, so if we incorporated a ban on feeding into our shark legislation on the national level, that would be worthwhile, and put the heavy fine on it too.
That'd be fine.
Yeah. And just to share, this happened in Manamui some years ago, where there was some chumming going on out in front of Manamui, and the fishermen at Manamui were starting to be harassed by sharks. And so it's definitely an issue. So let me just say, I mean, this is a choir, but just any question. Feeding wild predators, never a good idea. Whether they're sharks or crocodiles or anything, our message to the tourism industry is feeding large predators is always a bad idea.
This is just what Mary said is true, like clowns, they go fishing, they come for the cats, and so they think it's a nuisance. Then when, my heard about the boat, when it was introduced, was the budget came down like $2 million for next year. And this, the leadership are looking for additional funding for budget. And this is one of the things that can help generate income for. But then if we're looking at the long term, what you say is true, like if you get recognized for international community is the shark sanctuary, and you can get more good quality assistance instead of small little income from the fishing vessels. I mean, it's just a thought that people should be aligned.
Kind of just emphasizing what everybody's been saying, but I think we all have seen this in the past. SB 844, it may be deferred, it may be tabled, it will be back. It might be a year, it might be 2 years. This will be an ongoing issue that will be dealt with for decades, for generations. So when you're talking about what we could use, from my perspective, and what Palau could use, it is a long-term commitment for education. I think we've seen work with the Turtle Program, but the people we really need to talk to are the communities and the kids who will become voters, who will elect a congressman. This is a life-term issue. So it's reality. This will not stop. I think we're all aware of it, but
Next generation.
Yeah, that's exactly what Micronesian Shark Foundation is starting to do, and with the Palau Conservation Society, they'll start, I think we just left, but the two of them will be joining, and they'll be doing a program in Palau, and we purchased a shark outfit, and this is for the sole purpose of education. With that said, the research is still going on, and if this group is not uniform in this sabotage parts on receivers, and two of them were taken, this research is actually to support our whole goal here. And it's extremely difficult to work in this way. When receivers for research are taken, that's bad. That's very bad.
Yeah, I think when the bill was brought up for discussion, it would really have been helpful for Senator Aledui if he had some research in front of him to present to his colleagues. And I'm just wondering and I asked Pickrick and whether he knew if PTS or anybody had any reports done yet, because it seems like research just keeps going and going, and we have international reports. Where's the local data that can be compiled now and looked at?
Okay. Some of the receivers that were taken had exactly what was needed to complete the first stage of the data, and it's gone. So that's a big loss of our research. However, there is some very interesting data, and one of them is the shark count that's being conducted, and there's a whole year. It's probably being processed as we speak by AIMS, and this can tell you also of populations in different dive sites.
Yeah, you have to give the senator something now that he could put his teeth on, and the economic analysis too.
I'll rush AIMS now.
For the key things that you
I'll rush AIMS now, but I have the newer receivers that were put in place instead of those taken. They already have quite a lot of data, so
I think that's something we
we're
could
talking
probably...
about local data about which directions they go or where the sharks stay. But as far as the commercial fishing, that wouldn't do as much good. But the point that Jalap was making about if there's any income, if they would allow this law to go through, if they would get additional income from the shark feeding, why would they think they would get additional income if right now they're already offloading those fins at open ocean? So if you would allow them to fish and do that, they would continue to do the same thing, and you would still not get more money economically out of it. So
that's why I mentioned, like, if we get the recognition for good reputation, maybe there will be more assistance happening, bigger assistance then.
yeah, the value for that would be much greater.
I think what we'll do on that is that economic analysis, what we can actually look at both of those issues and say, hey, this is what it would be for commercial value, even the short term, even if you were able to collect it, or if it was offloaded, versus the value of them in the water. One of the other things that I wanted to challenge is a notion that was brought up by Noah, who said that apparently it's viewed that the tourism industry dollars, only 18% actually kind of stays in Palau. And I found that hard to believe, but that's it's at least a perception of the OEK. Noah said that the OEK perceives, whether it's true or not, that the tourism dollars, only 18% of the value stays in Palau. Other than that, it's basically 80% goes out of Palau. I'm not saying it's accurate. I think it's probably
backwards. Does anybody know the source of that? Has anybody heard that? statistic?
No, but there's people with offshore accounts and funny banking stuff. And he's talking about the snorkelers, and it's not just the snorkelers that do this. So there is some basis to what he's saying. And whether or not it's 80% or not would be another thing.
Yeah, and I
Certainly happens though.
Yeah, and I think it's just a perception that the OEK has. I don't think it's the right perception, but I think it's an important issue to address. So, because obviously if the number that they're working off of is that the tourism industry only brings in 18% of the value, that's not a good number for them to be thinking of if that's not accurate, which is my guess that it's not accurate. So I think that's something that's important to address, to find out where that perception comes from. And then if it's an inaccurate perception, to challenge it and say, wait a second, let's do a new analysis on what the value of the tourism industry is to Palau's economy.
Does anybody from the tourism industry know that figure?
TAP has dealt with it, and
But nobody in the room right now?
We don't know the figure that he's referring to, we don't know the source of that, and then if you're, what is the real number? The last, was it the JICA report that number came from, the last, that we used in TAP?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's older data, but so it would need to be refreshed, but we do have some basis for data. But the problem with, getting the data is, if you look at the value of the fisheries, also that data is less than $3 million. If you actually go to what's coming from the Government Information Office, we know that there's a greater value, that's moving around in other circles, and that's what's driving this whole body of legislation. And when you talk about economic value, Yal, it's not just of the sharks. You have to look at the whole thing as a body of legislation. There was 5 or 6 different laws that were passed, all of which are like pixels in a picture. Neither one of them by themselves were very recognizable, but as a body, very damaging. I mean, they, do away with or soften our shark laws so we can't enforce them, and therefore can't collect fines and otherwise. And then the purse seining laws, and then give away purse seining tax-free for 5 years, and then our reef fisheries and all these other bits and pieces. I mean, you look at it as a body of legislation, which you have to, we could challenge the economics in that pretty quickly with some help.
I'm just going to read this line from the report, and I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but the Committee on Resources, Commerce, Trade and Development is chaired by Senator Ledun, and this is another figure which I don't know where they got this figure at, but I think it's a more accurate figure than 18%, but it says the passage of this bill will negatively impact the tourism industry, which is our nation's largest revenue generating industry. The tourism industry generates over $60 million annually in the program. So this includes divers who come to Palau for shark watching, which bolsters Palau's economy. It provides a substantial tax base, which Palau uses to fund other services for the public.
That's a great line. And that's from the senator?
Yeah.
60 or 16? 60.
Yeah, Matt, I just read a report that was made available from the Statistics Office, and in 2006, the revenue for the tourism industry was 61 million. I don't have all 7 or 8, I'm trying to get all these, but
what's the annual budget here?
What's that?
What's the annual?
It's like 278 million.
Is that gross revenues or is that?
Business gross GRT. But I just want to say that with respect to how this legislation is being debated in Congress and the actions that we're deeming to be imperative or would help the issue of economic value and research, and I did put the question to you whether you would be, Pew would be able to provide funding dollars for local research efforts, and that was something that really yours was more of a campaign in educational efforts. And so if we're talking about education, we're talking in the long term because we want to protect the future generations. And so one of the things that you came back with was, let's just try to, it's better if Palau just does something now rather than going directly, opposing this legislation, because it'll keep coming back and coming back and coming back. So before everybody leaves today, at least maybe we can agree on what should be prioritized. Is it in the education part of it? Is it, trying to do research, or is it the policy? I mean, because those, we choose one direction and then that should get most of the attention, and the other ones we can work with on a peripheral basis.
Thank you.
I think just to give just a small response, part of what Matt is making a commitment to Cisco, which I think will really help fill a gap in terms of information, because Micronesia Shark Foundation and others, including CAT, are doing some research on shark biology in Palau, migration patterns, aggregation patterns, those kinds of things, counts, population density. So that would be really valuable, exactly what you're saying. Our decision makers need that information. But what the big gap is the economic information, socioeconomic analyses that we haven't done yet. We haven't been able to translate sharks into benefits to Palauans, economic, dollar, and social benefits to Palauans. We have an intuitive sense of that as a community and as a traditional community, but when our decision makers go to the floor to debate the issue, it's really hard for them to say these sharks directly benefit Palauan people in this way, except for with these broader figures, like, and it's a valuable figure, the $60 million figure. Then the response you get, which I actually heard from Senator Uwagi, bless his heart, during that that forum, was people don't come to Palau for sharks. So, which is crazy, but hey, that's a perception. And so we need to have specific figures. Sharks generated this much money for the people of Palau in such and such year, or over the course of such and such year. Sharks, not the tourism industry, because then they'll say it's the rock islands, or it's the the coral reefs, or whatever it is. It has to be specific to sharks.
So Tiare, Micronesian Shark Foundation is starting in December with a PhD student coming together with AIMS to do the exact what he said.
Great.
December,
Great.
a student is coming to start figuring out how much is a live shark worth here in Palau.
That's great. Excellent.
Well, I just want to share what I heard in the session from one of the senators, his perception, Senator Valdez. He said that, well, we're talking about the EEZ, sharks that are being caught at the EEZ, which is 12 miles. The tourists don't go diving out there. They're just staying within the reef, and they're catching those fish out there. So I don't see how it's going to impact. So that's another perception from one of our leaders.
And that's where the migration is at.
Yeah, so to educate them on how that affects.
Go back to Siska's point, is like walking out of here with something, I think we've already got the core of what it is that we want to agree on, and that is we need some economic information, we need that statistical data. And if you look at a problem as, seek first to understand the problem and then to be understood, in order for us to proceed with education, the very first element of it is information. So, I mean, if there's one thing we can all agree on right now is that, that data would be beneficial not just to those in conservation, but to those of us in tourism, cross-platform, and Chamber of Commerce, and everybody. So, I think, the president of the Chamber of the BTA is already here. The president of the Chamber of Commerce has just left, but he and I are very, very clear that the Chamber certainly supports this information. And we've already met with Matt and Julie and tasked the executive director to go to the government statistics office and start gathering whatever data we can right now to jumpstart this thing. So there's one commonality before we even start right now, or two actually. We're all in agreement that sharks need to be protected. That's a unified message. We're very clear on that. Methods, perhaps we have different ideas, but they're all pieces of the same puzzle, and we all need the data. So I think we have something to work with.
Just I'd like to add to that one. The data for the Palau's oceanic fisheries is located at SPC. That's the Secretary of Pacific Community. That's the main database for all the Pacific. At the same time, we do monitor our own data, and that data is spread out, I think, within the Ministry of Resource and Development. So, with observers, we've been collecting data for the past, third year. For the record, there's a total of 7 certified observers that are trained under the national and sub-regional and regional program. So right now we have 5 observers on the regional program attending a fat closure, which the director mentioned before.
2 ladies.
No, just one.
One lady?
Yeah, the other lady didn't make it.
Oh.
Hopefully we can get her out next month. But yeah, the programs are moving along, data are starting to come in, but it's still very small. And if you need some of that data, I can get you that data, or you can access SBC.
Thank you. So I know we're past the normal work time, so it seems to me that as Trevor said, everybody's kind of in unification that we need to protect the sharks. We need more information, data, economic being one of the high priorities. The questions out there about what the priority is, the policy, the education, and I forget what the other aspect, the research. So it seems like the research is a high priority. It seems like they're all a priority. It seems like we're already kind of working on multiple fronts, which I think is great because that's how you win a campaign. You do the education, you do the research, and you do the policy. And so it seems like there's activities to do in all of them. I think the other thing we can commit to, this is something that we do. This is exactly what we were set up to do. And it's what I've been doing for the past 15 years now, is campaigns. Campaigns to achieve a goal, normally a policy goal. So what I will also commit to doing, and I've already started doing because the wheels in my head turn when I walk into a situation like this, is to write down an idea plan for actually how to execute this, knowing that I won't be able to do it. I'd love to come here and stay for a while and dive a lot, but putting some resources to that plan if all the pieces come together to actually make sure that we can actually carry forward with that plan. And not just my outside view, but also working with folks in the room about these ideas that we're going to come up with. And I'm sure there'll be other ideas that we can put into this plan to actually then say, here is our to-do list, because that's what happens with it. If you're going to reach the goal, there are to-dos, and someone's got to say, okay, that's me. I'm going to go talk to the president today about shark conservation, or I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go talk to the local television station, or line up the local television station to talk about sharks, or maybe put a public service announcement on the television, or the senator that has his radio station, you know, have a contact with it. Then, okay, good. So anyhow, so that's what we can also commit to doing, is to putting that in place, and then you know, if things come together and people want to do it, we can also commit some funds to actually implement that too. So, how's that to kind of conclude on things? Okay. All right, save some sharks. Thanks everybody.